Hello, Sean and I wanted to spend some time with all of our staff here through this video, starting with this one, but actually a series of them to come out on a very important topic that we want to engage some dialogue in, and that has to do with the fact that as we're into really the 9th, 10th month of this pandemic, the work that you all have been doing has been amazing and heroic, and we've used all those terms and will continue to. But now we've entered a new phase, and that phase includes the production and distribution of the COVID vaccine that is literally right now starting to find its way to final approvals and ultimately to distribution. There's been a lot said about vaccines in our communities and on the press and so forth, and it's an incredibly important issue that we want to engage a conversation about. So the way we'd like to go about this is really with two ideas here. One is we just want to have an open dialogue about it, and that is a back and forth dialogue in the course of time. So lots of things that go into this conversation need to be part of that open dialogue. And what we're asking of everybody in that open dialogue is to come at it with an open mind, that we all need to learn. We all have different perspectives and so forth. And to help this process along, we're just asking people to engage with that open mind. And before I ask Sean to sort of reflect on that, I want to say this, and I want to say very clearly. Sean and I are not here to give medical advice. We are, and probably importantly for many, we're not here as an organization to mandate that people take this COVID vaccine. We think it's an important topic. We think there's important reasons for us all to consider it, and ultimately for many of us to take it. But as an organization, you will not experience a mandate. Now that could change if the public health requires it or something happens, but that is not the case at the moment, nor frankly do we expect it to be. So I just wanted to make sure that's understood, that as we get into this conversation, it's not about forcing anybody to do anything, except what we would like is to invite you into this dialogue. So Sean, just reflect on that a little bit and why this conversation matters to us.
Yeah, and I think you said it really well, Dave. This will be a personal choice that people have to make, whether to take the vaccine or not. At the same time, as an organization, we see a lot of misinformation being shared about the vaccine, and we feel that it's incumbent upon us to help make sure that our staff, our residents, our clients are getting good, well-balanced, complete, and truthful information so that they can make an informed decision. And from an organizational and operation perspective, I think we see every day the impact COVID has had on our ability to serve people, whether that's staff, getting sick and being impacted, or residents and our clients being impacted. And I think our goal is to try to minimize that impact as much as possible. Try to get back to some semblance of normalcy as quickly as possible. And we know that part of the road to get there is going to be about a significant percentage of the population taking the vaccine. So we want to make sure that we give everybody as complete information as we can, sift through a lot of the noise and just share the objective truth and take it from there and hope that we can get back to a more normal way of operating.
Yeah, and you're right. It's an incredibly sort of complex decision. We're not at a place where we want folks to be forced to a decision in a sort of yes or no. No, I won't take it, or yes, I will absolutely take it. We want folks to get educated, and the time for the yes or no decision will come. But at this time, we want to have this conversation that sort of sifts through, as Sean said, a lot of the noise that's out there. And the way we've talked about doing that is to think about the fact that on these sorts of matters in our lives, these incredibly complex, lot of information sorts of things, there are three things, if you will, that we all bring to this sort of a conversation. The first thing is what is our lived experience? What does my life experience tell me about this issue, right? From my background to my family to the community I live in, what does my lived experience tell me about this? We also recognize that there is a great deal of information coming at us. So what is that public information telling us? My source that I may listen to and read up on might be different than yours. And so the sort of public narrative has to be understood. And so there's that. And then third, there's the actual sort of data. What does the data tell us? What is the information that's solid and the science tell us that needs to be interpreted by our life experience and by that public narrative, and yet is nonetheless data. And so as we go forward, as we come into this with this sort of open mindset, we're asking you to think about how you're processing information in any of those three sort of domains at any given time, because we tend to move back and forth between them as we process these complex things. And so, Sean, sort of pick it up from there and talk a little bit about how we think that sort of fits who we are as we want to have this conversation.
Mm-hmm. And I think in particular about that first point you made, Dave, that everybody comes to or will come to this decision with a lived experience. And that leads me to think about two things that we're focused on as an organization around lived experience. One being trauma background that many people have, and wanting to be a trauma-informed, trauma-based organization, working to be. And the other is the impact of sort of diversity of experience that and how that impacts the way people might approach whether to take the vaccine or not, or how to think about it. Right, from a trauma standpoint, just as an example, I don't mind sharing. I think many people who know me know that my wife is a breast cancer survivor, and how she thinks about having to get poked and prodded with needles after years of treatment because of the trauma from that experience is something that she carries into decisions around medical care in a way that I don't necessarily understand. And many of our staff, many of our clients will have similar types of experiences that will shape the lens through which they view this decision. So however we educate and share information, we want to be mindful of that background that people bring to this decision. The other, when I think about culture and the diversity of staff and thought and our clients that we have, that also will impact the way people make decisions. And I'll give another personal example. My sister-in-law, who is a public health professional, when she was having my youngest nephew had preeclampsia and had really bad experiences with some of the medical professionals she was working with. And when you look at the risk for women of color in pregnancy and childbirth, and some of the experiences in particular that women of color have with the medical community, her experience with the birth of her second son and how things went with the doctors will also shape the lens through which she makes the decision about how much to trust the information that she gets from the medical community or from doctors in particular, or the level of skepticism she may have about decisions she'll make or information she's presented with. So we also want to be mindful about that. And we're coming at this understanding that there is that lived experience piece. Everybody's looks a little bit different. And that's going to impact what decision they make. And we want to be respectful and thoughtful about that.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Sean. I appreciate those examples to get us all thinking about what is it about my history? What is it about your history that influences decisions of this nature? And so, this is the beginning of a conversation, and long before we're going to ask you, yes or no, we're inviting you into this dialogue, and no pressure, no preconceived ideas, except this is probably one of the most important intersections in my lifetime of a personal decision and a community crisis, right? That I care about both. I care about my health. I care about my family's health. I care about your health. And I also care about doing what I can as a member of the community at large to bring this pandemic to an end. And so we're going to work our way through this together. We're going to have conversations that maybe at times are inartful. Maybe you will hear me or Sean or somebody else say something that could have been said better or differently. We will ask for your grace about that and your understanding that leading hard conversations is sometimes hard. And so as we go forward, we're going to give each other plenty of room to be thoughtful and to really work through those difficult moments that may come. So where are we going from here? Well, this is, as I said, the sort of the first of a number of ways we're going to communicate with you with a series of videos that's going to break this down to some topics that we're going to invite other ways to talk about those topics as we go. And so each week we think we're going to be having probably 2 videos put out. We're going to try to keep them as short as possible, knowing that these are complex issues and you can't just sort of hit a couple of bullet points. But nevertheless, we're going to ask you to find the time, find the way to watch this, engage in the dialogue to follow, and to just participate with us as we go. So I want to thank you for everything you've been doing in this time. It's been incredibly difficult. I don't need to say that. You know it, we know it. And yet you not just have persevered, but have done so in a way that the mission of Wellspring has never been stronger, and that's because of you. And so we want to support you through this next phase, and we're going to do that through this open dialogue, open minds. So thank you. We'll see you again.